get the drift. I win.
Well, hey there everybody, my name is Joe Robinson and I was the winner of Australia's Got Talent, the second season back in 2008. And in this video I'd like to share with you my story about how I won Australia's Got Talent. Before we get into it, I'd like to say welcome to my YouTube channel. Please smash that like button and subscribe here for more videos. So this all started when I was about 10 years old and I hated playing the piano. So I started playing the piano when I was about 5, and I used to practice for 30 minutes before school in the mornings. I'd play songs like Ode to Joy by Beethoven, and you know, I just wasn't really particularly good at it, and most of all, I didn't like it. I had always been fascinated with the guitar since a young age, and you know, there's pictures of me jamming with the ukulele when I was about, you know, 5 or 6 years old, I believe, and I begged my parents, please, can I quit the piano to learn the guitar? Because the guitar was an instrument I could carry around with me, and it just seemed like more my kind of thing. Fortunately, they said yes, but there was a caveat. They said, if you're gonna play the guitar, you better practice, because otherwise you'll be straight back to the piano. So I was motivated from day one to practice the guitar. Now I grew up way out in the bush. You know, we got hot water in 2001. It was really rustic, this old farmhouse, and frankly I didn't have a lot to do. There was only 2 TV channels, and our TV was about the size of a dinner plate. And you know, I just fell in love with playing all these great songs by people like Eric Clapton, Bob Dylan, Neil Young, James Taylor, and you know, just loved the feeling of the strings under my fingers, and I became, like I said, obsessed with playing the guitar. Pretty early on, when I was about 10 or 11, I formed a band with some friends at school. We called ourselves the Chaotic Penguins, and we would rehearse once a week, you know, every Saturday or Sunday, and we usually do it at my house because my mum is a drummer, and we had a drum set at the house, so the drums were already set up at our house, and they'd all come over, and I just loved setting up the equipment, getting the lyrics printed and the chords ready, and kind of coordinating the band practice. And eventually we worked up a set of about 30 minutes of material, and we performed at my local school. And I remember the first time I was on stage, I was just in love with performing. So after that first gig, we started to play around town at local fundraisers, like the local soccer club, the local karate organization, the local rugby club. We play at other schools, and we play at charity events, raising money for, you know, a person in the area who was sick. And it was just a wonderful experience performing and sharing music and working up until we had, you know, an hour-long set. Then we had an hour and a half, then we had a 2-hour set, eventually getting to a 3-hour set and a 4-hour set, which allowed us to play, you know, bars. We were underage, but we could still play, usually in the back, the beer garden. I just became really into so many diverse guitarists. Some of my parents' friends introduced me to Chet Atkins, Jerry Reed, Merle Travis, Eric Johnson, Steve Morse, Danny Gatton, you know, really some of the most incredible guitar players ever. And I became really into learning all these different songs. Whenever we'd visit one of my parents' music friends, I would check their VHS tape collection for some music videos, and the holy grail were instructional guitar videos, and I found some really great ones, such as Danny Gatton's Telemaster and Eric Johnson's Total Electric Guitar, which became, you know, I ate my cereal in front of those every day and just absorbed every note I could. And I actually grew this library of bootlegged VHS tapes and later DVDs that I kept in my room that I would use to teach myself how to play music. Because I had a teacher at first, Jeff Wallage is his name, or Wally as I called him. I'm forever indebted to you, Wally. So I would practice for hours on end and watch these videos and just was so obsessed with playing music, and I loved the feeling of performing. And it was quite a good thing living way out in the bush because we could play music so loud and no one would hear it, although one time our neighbors did complain and we did leave a pair of small foam earplugs in their mailbox. When I was about 12, I was asked to go on tour with an artist named Texas Rose, who allegedly had a repertoire of 1,000 songs, and so when I was on stage with her, I didn't know whether we were going to play some old rock and roll or some country music or what. I had to really watch her left hand and the chords she was playing, and it was a great ear training experience. But we performed at the Tamworth Country Music Festival, and she paid me $100 per gig, and we played 12 gigs over 10 days. I remember it. And I came home with $1,200 thinking, oh my goodness, I can make a little bit of money playing the guitar. Well, at the time, that felt like a fortune. And at that same music festival, I had a life-changing experience when I met Phil and Tommy Emmanuel. I got to hang with them, play a little bit for them, and Phil especially became, really close to my family and invited me on stage to play with him. I played Carlos Santana's Europa. And upon first meeting Tommy, he said, "Look at you." He said, "You got big hands for such a young fella." He said, "You're like a little gorilla." He said, that's perfect for playing the guitar. You got nice big mitts." Phil and Tommy both really encouraged me and inspired me. Inspired me to no end. Hearing them play on stage was such a powerful experience. Witnessing the command Tommy had of his Maton acoustic and witnessing the virtuosity of Phil playing these electric lines and his flat picking technique, it just blew my mind. So a little time went by and I found myself playing so many shows, sitting in with Phil Emmanuel, playing with the Chaotic Penguins, playing my own solo gigs in pubs and restaurants, cafes, that kind of thing, as well as the occasional music festival. I was also playing on the street as a busker, selling my CDs and playing for tips. And I soon got the opportunity to record a CD with a producer. And the producer was Phil Emmanuel's keyboard player. He was playing in Phil's band at the time. And the recording experience, making my album Birdseed, taught me so much and made me so determined to really get good at the guitar. So it was at that point I became crazy obsessed with playing music, more so than ever, and I set my alarm for 4 a.m. every day and would wake up before school to practice. I had a chart on my wall that was broken down into 15-minute increments, and my goal was to practice 3.5 to 4 hours before I went to school in the mornings. So I would practice 15 minutes of scales, 15 minutes of left-hand exercises, 15 minutes of right-hand exercises, 15 minutes of a new arrangement, 15 minutes of learning a new song, maybe by Chet Atkins or Jerry Reed or Tommy Emmanuel or Steve Morse. And then I'd spend 15 minutes working on my timing with a metronome, 15 minutes writing songs, and I just built this curriculum for myself, and it really transformed my technique and really allowed me to make so much progress on my instrument. So at this point I was getting pretty good at playing, and Phil Emmanuel said to me one night, he said, "Joe, you need to go to Nashville. You need to go where the most unbelievable musicians are playing." He said, "I went there and I watched Johnny Highland play at Robert's Western World, and it was just such an unbelievable experience being there, meeting all these great musicians. And Tommy's over there. I'll give you Tommy's number. You should call Tommy. He'll show you the ropes and it'll be really good for you." So I did that. My mum and I flew over to Nashville, and we actually borrowed $10,000 from my grandparents to do so. A round-trip flight from Australia to Nashville was around $2,500 at the time. And we stayed down on Music Row, and I went door knocking all along Music Row. I'd go to a music publisher and I'd ask them if I could play them my songs, and if they listened to me, and half the time they'd say no, half the time they'd say sure, come on in. And when they'd listen to me and they'd see how earnest I was and how passionate and hear this music I was playing, they would connect me with other people. And so I met so many people during that first trip to Nashville just because I went out there, I was door knocking, I was where the magic was, I was so obsessed and so passionate, I was staying up all night practicing. I was introduced to incredible musicians, producers, record label executives, music publishers, so many great people who were really encouraging and who introduced me to other people, and I just networked my way through this town just being here for a few weeks. So needless to say, I loved Nashville and I was determined to come back as soon as I could. So I was about 16 at this time, and I came back to Australia, and I was just so busy playing gigs all up and down the East Coast that I told my high school principal, I don't have time to come to school. You know, I've missed out on 60 days in this school semester. I said, I'm basically gone every Wednesday through Friday on tour playing gigs, and this is what I want to do. And, you know, I can go to a music school if I want. You know, I'm in Kempsey, New South Wales, which is kind of, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity there at the time, and I knew what I wanted to do, so I left school and just kept touring and was so busy with music. I networked with some people at Sony Music in Sydney, Australia, and one of the A&R representatives suggested I go on Australia's Got Talent, which was a new show at the time, and I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know it was going to be on TV. I didn't know about the first season. I just thought, I'm saying yes to every opportunity that comes my way because I have no backup plan. This is what I'm about. This is what I'm going to do. If there's a gig, I'll be there. I'll play the opening of a Manhole cover. So I flew down to Melbourne for the first audition, and I walked out onto that stage. I played my song. I got a standing ovation. It was an amazing moment that I won't forget. When I came off the stage, one of the producers handed me a contract and said, this is the Sony contract that everybody signs who's on this show. And I looked it over and I said, I'm sorry, I can't sign this. I'm going to Nashville. I'm not interested in being stuck in Australia. You know, if Sony Music want to work with me, that's great, but I'm not signing this, you know, standard contract for this talent show. Fortunately, the producers of the show were really nice to me, and they said, okay, let's just talk about it later. You know, we don't have to worry about this now. So that first episode was a big hit with the public. Apparently a record number of people voted for me, and it was just a big success. I made a real impression. So I went down to the semi-final, and they presented the contract to me again, and I said, no, I was very clear initially, and I'm still, you know, adamant that I'm not signing that contract. You can cut me out of the show. I'm not interested in signing that contract. The contract terms were not very favorable, by the way. So I played on the semi-final and made a big impression. Got a lot of people talking about it, and I went back home, back to the bush, and I had phone calls from the head of Sony Music who said, Joe, I need you to sign that contract. We're not going to twist your arm. This isn't going to be a bad experience. And I said, no, I'm going to Nashville. That's what I'm doing. Not interested in signing your contract. I'm really sorry. You can cut me out of the show. Then I had the head of Fremantle Media call me, which is the production company for Australia's Got Talent. And he said, Joe, I have 17 programs on the air at the moment, and you're causing me a real headache by not signing this contract. I need you to sign it. And I said, no, you can cut me out of the show. Do what you need to do, but I'm not signing the contract. So I flew back down to Melbourne for the grand final, and I was fully expecting that they would probably cut me out, but I played, the audience loved it, people voted, and I was crowned the winner, and I was so shocked because I didn't sign their contract, and the whole experience was just surreal, absolutely surreal. When they handed me that $250,000 check, my life really changed at that moment. So literally 5 days after winning the Australia's Got Talent TV show, I was on a plane heading to Nashville to record my Time Jumpin' album. And to be totally honest, I wasn't smart with the money, and I actually blew it all. But that's for another video. So that is how I won Australia's Got Talent. First, I became obsessed with playing the guitar. Then I gained a lot of experience playing hundreds and hundreds of shows. I had really great mentors. I went where the opportunity is, flying over to Nashville, taking that chance, making that leap. And I made the choice, the conscious choice, to focus on my craft, wake up at 4 a.m. and practice. And the truth is, I look back at the footage in those shows and I think, you know, I actually wasn't really that great. I think I've gotten so much better now. Some people will say, Joe, is the focus and the drive you had at that age, you know, is that talent? And I say, no, that was a choice. And that came from discontent. That came from being up in the bush, showering under a bucket, and being so determined to get out of there and make something of myself. All my friends at school would say, Joe, are you going back home to sleep in your cardboard box? They made fun of me, and it was the best thing they could have done for me because it motivated me to become so good that people could not ignore me. These days I live in Nashville and I'm 29 years old, and I've gotten to work with a lot of my heroes over the last few years, which has been really incredible, and I'm so grateful. I love music now more than ever. I'm more determined and more passionate than ever, and I think I play a lot better now than I did then and I ever have. So thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you very much for subscribing to my channel here. See you again soon.